our guests. We have the General Khalid Okasha here in Egypt, and from Amman we have the former minister, the academic consultant, Dr. Muhammad Abu Rahman, and from Maryland we have our researcher in international relations, Mr. Donadio. Welcome everyone. Let me start with you, Mr. Khalid Okasha. There are lots of escalations and updates in the past hours, different changes regarding the release of bodies on common Thursday and release of some hostages on common Saturday. And on the contrary, so far we have a really hard birth for having new negotiations about the second phase. How do you see it? Well, I'd like to welcome you, Mr. Hazem, and all of your elite guests and viewers. Actually, today we have some positive news in regards to the real will that's being formed by the mediators, and I mainly mean Doha and Cairo, and also United States of America, and precisely speaking, the Tivot Cov. Those three mediators have really played great role as having direct pressure on Israeli part. As in the previous few days, they were trying somehow to have some kind of work like the political or the human political or the human protocol, which was not accepted by Cairo and Doha. And they felt that Netanyahu was trying to somehow delay the things that we have already agreed on within the agreement. So these points that Benjamin Netanyahu was not so clear about it were supposed to be the real essential steps that can have real revive and reconstruction for the Gaza people, like the heavy equipment, like the camps, like the mobile houses. All of those things were somehow suspended by Netanyahu. However, the meeting that's been just ended a while ago in Cairo has managed to overcome this delay, and today we started to have the first phase, or the first group of those heavy equipment have managed to get into Gaza to make real change to Gaza people. The second positive point is the fact that there is an American persistence that Cairo and Doha has felt within this negotiation phase, that Israeli should be committed to move to the second phase. Well, how come? Because so far nothing has been really made on the ground. Well, to be in adherence to the second phase of the agreement, we considered it as one of the positive steps, because Benjamin Netanyahu, he didn't want to be part of this at all, and he was even trying to maneuver to make this agreement just in its first phase. So do you think that we're going to get into the second phase? Well, Israel does not want to get into it. However, all the factors, all the indicators, and everything that we've heard to in Cairo today, especially by United States of America, and we know that United States of America has pushed Israel to sign on this agreement. So to have such real strong will by USA to move together, to, as Steve Worker was saying, that all parties should agree and should do all what it takes to make sure that all of those things will be reality on the ground, also from the Palestinian part. That's why Cairo has managed to facilitate everything to get to those situations. Well, we will get to lots of files in further details that you referred to, but now let's move to our colleague from Amman, Mr. Abu Rahman. As you've heard to Mr. Khalid Okasha a while ago, this situation, this phase, how do you interpret the regional and Arab scenario in terms of the rejection of displacement, in terms of the Israeli situation, in order to go forward in implementing the agreement and also to have sort of pressure on the negotiation to get into the second phase of the agreement. Good evening to you and good evening to our viewers. Well, we have lots of, dimensions that you can interpret the situation through. So let's get about the complications of the second phase. I think each party, especially the Israeli party, they do have different anticipations or different criteria for sure. Benjamin Netanyahu government, which is one of the very important components in terms of implementing this phase, we have different levels that are variables. On the other hand, we have also the hostages' families. The idea of releasing the rest of the hostages in the second phase, which is for sure for Benjamin Netanyahu, is like his last card. So he wants to get rid of this file because it was very prolonged. However, on the other hand, we can see that the Israeli withdrawal from Gaza Strip, and maybe I agree with Mr. Khalid that Woskov stands that they have facilitated the situation to get into the second phase, and also Trump has pushed Israel to talk about the transfer and the displacement, So it's totally contradicting the second phase of the agreement. So have different elements that can put Israeli under pressure. For sure, the regional situation for the Arab countries is better. For sure, we'll have the tripartite summit and another one that will be held on the 4th of March in Cairo. We have lots of arrangements for the Arab House on the 4th of March. From my point of view, I say that Trump is so biased because let's say that clearly there is full bias from a Trump department towards Israel. Even if the Arab countries will provide the plan, and even if we will have some positive ideas, but still there will be a bargain on some of other files because they won't just accept a technical plan and that's it. We need to have a political plan. And maybe there is a very important question that's been addressed by Israeli party today, which is what is the situation of Hamas in Gaza on two levels, on the Hamas movement and Hamas as a movement politically. Since they do not want to have any presence to Hamas, Israel does not want to have even presence for the Palestinian Authority in Gaza, and they won't accept the return back of the Palestinian Authority. That's why we still have lots of challenges, I believe, in marking the future of this issue. For sure, there are lots of complications and lots of other questions that are addressed that require answers. And unfortunately, even the responses, even when we address those questions, unfortunately, we cannot get to common answers or unified answers. Let me move to our Mr. Donadio, our guest from Maryland, Mr. Donadio. Our colleagues here say that unfortunately USA is so much biased with Israel, despite the fact that Witkov does lots of things in the Middle East. However, there is a sort of specific language that we felt from Trump and from Israel that we're just waiting for the light green or the green light from Trump to do everything. And that's the situation so far.
So I think what we're going to see is the peace deal continue. It is a fragile peace. It's a peace that we've worked for all the key players in the region, Egypt, Jordan, Israel, United States. This is the only way forward. And I think Trump pretty much laid down the law when he got into office, not only with Hamas, but also with Israel and anyone else in the region that wants to continue fighting, that this is the only way. This is an agreement that has been made between Israel and Hamas. It has worked. We see prisoners being exchanged. We see Palestinians returning to the north. We've seen 14,000 trucks enter Gaza filled with humanitarian goods. We see tents. There is no mass exodus of Palestinians from Gaza. There is an option for Gazans if they choose to leave. I believe you will see Egypt opened the door to a certain amount of Palestinians that may want to relocate, and even Jordan. We saw the King Abdullah receive 2,000 children from Gaza, which was a wonderful humanitarian act and a wonderful gesture for mankind. I think ultimately this peace deal will continue, and you will see further exchanges of hostages. Fighting in Gaza compared to a month ago has literally ceased. There are some police actions that I'm seeing Israel is conducting in the West Bank, but overall, we're in a much better place than we were a month ago, and I fully expect the peace deal to continue forward successfully.
Do you agree with what's being said, that the situation is now better than it was a few months ago? It looks like, we're going beyond the unknown, because there are lots of questions and there are no answers. Well, let me say that I'm really positive. And yes, I do agree with our guest from United States of America, because yes, things are really better than it was. It's really better than it was when we were having lots of casualties and death on daily basis. So things are better, and mediators are working hard to make sure that we want to get back to that old and harmful scenario. This is very vital and pivotal role, because we have lots of political efforts, but also, and I do agree with our colleague from Jordan, that the coming phase we will get into lots of complications, because as you said, there are lots of questions, but again, negotiations won't be easy. Well, let me tell you what's being said by the Israeli media, that Israel has accepted to have received or to receive lots of or some caravans and some mobile houses, but again, this won't help to have the full implication of Trump plan. Well, we can interpret these statements in a way that if we will talk about the complications, so the first thing that we can refer to is the conflict of the wills. The will of having life back in Gaza through the allowance of the entrance of some elements that can have the reconstruction and that can have a revival of life for the Palestinians, and also the American proposal that really caused the Israeli persistence on their stance. Yeah, that was even not rational, as maybe some have explained. Yeah, as I said, it won't be that easy, and it won't be that accepted, especially as being expressed very clearly by the Arab countries. But again, as we said, we have a conflict of wills. So what is required from the Arab dimension is to have readiness and steadiness for what would be the situation afterwards, even if we are still within the negotiations of the second phase, because as we said, that the second phase will get into lots of things that are not easy. Who will take over the power? It's all about Hamas and the armament of Hamas. Do you think that we have clear Arab answers when it comes to those questions? I think maybe in Riyadh we can form some answers, and I also believe that the Palestinian House needs to formulate their own national internal responses so they can help the mediators and the Arab countries. This is very crucial. And also we urge the Arab countries to work with the Egyptian plan in the meeting that will be held in Riyadh. Also from the Palestinian part, they have to be so much flexible and agile. Well, just to stay with us, actually, let's move to our colleague from Amman, Mr. Roman. Mr. Rahman, do you think that the Arab countries are really ready to cover the questions that will be addressed after the end of the first phase of the deal? And so far, we haven't still get into negotiations after the second phase. What are the kind of hard questions that maybe we cannot really find answers for by the Arab countries? Well, Hazem, unfortunately, it's getting more sophisticated. You know, the Arab stance is positive, especially the Jordanian, Saudi, Egyptian stance. We've managed to have an international and Arab stance against the displacement through the meeting with Trump and the King of Jordan. That has got lots of dimensions of that situation on the regional level. However, I still believe that we need to get into further details. We need to get into further packages of the political future, because I'm really concerned with the fact that we will get into lots of issues when it comes to the political and military stances from Israel. And I'm afraid that they might provoke the Arab countries. Maybe this is exactly what's being said. You know, this political official has said that during negotiations, Israel will submit their security requests based on the cabinet requests. Yeah, exactly. Furthermore, let me add that they stated that we do not want to have Hezbollah scenario in Gaza. So despite the fact that Hamas movement does understand that after the retreat of Iran, things have been changed, but still, you know, there is kind of conflict inside the movement itself. Some of them need to just, you know, keep with the armament and to keep in the same situation. So we really need to have this dialogue, to have some Arab logical scenarios, so the Palestinians won't really feel that they have real loss. You know, Israel wants to put an end to Hamas. Hamas does not want to have the power of the Palestine, but they want to be there in the situation. You see, subsequently, we are still facing lots of bottlenecks. So I think that it's very important to have the Arab-Palestinian dialogue in order to have agenda that can deal with the situation. And because, you know, Trump won't accept at all to abandon his plan, I believe that he still would stick to his plan. He won't leave his plan for the displacement unless there will be satisfaction to the Israeli part. And I think that in case we will get to settlement with Israel, it won't be that easy to Palestinians. So yeah, maybe tactic speaking, it's good for the Arab countries, but within the strategic context, we have a huge issue that inside Israel, there's a huge persistence to keep Gaza at specific level. And from the US, they just have the belief and Israel vision. Yeah, thank you so much. Now let's move to Mr. Donadio from Maryland. In light of what's been said by Mr. Abu Ruman and Mr. Khalid Okasha, there are some people who say that the Arab stance, the strong Arab stance, is the actual cornerstone that protected Palestinians against the displacement plan announced by Trump, supported by Netanyahu. However, what would satisfy Trump in terms of the Arab plan? In other words, the Arab or the optimal Arab stance to Trump that could be submitted, that can provide the Arab plan that somehow could be accepted by Trump, versus the plan that he presented.
I think any plan that's going to give an everlasting peace, not only to the Palestinians, but to the Israelis. Ultimately, these are two neighbors that are going to have to learn to live and coexist together. And I think what's going to satisfy Donald Trump is the plan of alleviating any possibility of violence moving forward from Hezbollah or Hamas as an armed group. I don't think that they're going to be able to tolerate either of those groups moving forward, almost like denazification after World War II. The Nazi Party was not able to exist. The Allies would not allow it. So I think you're going to see that. So part of any peace plan moving forward from the Arab community.
Israel is not Israel, and what they have done, the war that they have made against the civilians are not terroristic. Trump has to see what's been done in Gaza. So things could be really, in reality, when we talk about terrorism, it's Israel. Israel is the one who was committing terroristic attacks against the civilians, even before the attacks on the 7th of October. Maybe things have been clear so far that U.S. is so much biased with Israel. So in some practical steps, how Trump department can make changes to their stance, which is usually supporting Israeli government against the Palestinians, and that goes against all the international laws, and which is totally different from the U.S. previous department decisions.
So the big misconception in the Arab world is that they believe only Israel is our ally, but Egypt is our ally, Jordan is our ally, Saudi Arabia is our ally. These are all key allies that not only the United States partners with, but we also listen to them. So I don't think any negotiation with Donald Trump is just going to be him speaking and not listening to our allies and all of the allies. There is a special relationship between the United States and Israel. This goes back all the way to the Holocaust after World War II. So it is a very strong partnership. They have been a democracy in the Middle East for a long time, and we support democracies. We are also allies with the Palestinians themselves. Most Americans are not happy with the Palestinians that have died in this conflict. They're not happy to see the casualties of war. But we have to remember Gaza is an active war zone, or it was until the peace deal. And most Americans want it to stay that way. And that's why you see the urgency of Donald Trump making what, by today's standard, bold claims on what to do and how to solve the problem. So moving forward, I think you're going to see the peace deal continue. You're going to see Donald Trump continue to press not only our allies, the Israelis, and coming up with hopefully a deal
Trump,
that won't break.
Mr. Donadio, Trump is a man of peace after his stances, after his decisions, everything that he made after he's been appointed.
Trump is a man of peace. He wants to be known as somebody who stops wars, not starts them. He wants his legacy to be just that. We've seen what he has done within 3 weeks. You've seen now the war in Ukraine. They're meeting with the Russians to try to talk, to try to stop this war. You've seen, and both of my colleagues there as guest speakers agree with me, that Gaza is better off right now than it was a month ago. That's thanks to Donald Trump. And sometimes Donald Trump says things that maybe people don't understand right away, but there is a method to getting stuff done, and this is what he has done so far.
Yeah. So please stay with us, Mr. Donadio, and maybe Mr. Khaled Okasha, we can get to the American stance that we follow with Mr. Donadio, that Trump is a man of peace that want to put an end to war. So now, do you think that the situation is better now in Palestine just because we put an end to war? But when we see what the situation is in Gaza Strip, I think that, yes, for sure, we cannot deny this reality. If we would really consider the current American administration and Trump, that they are peacemakers, so we can also refer to the Arab countries in the same way. So the American administration has to really consider and to see what's being done, against the Palestinians, because this was real terrorism, and this has been already recorded. This is not exaggeration. This has already been stated in the International Criminal Court in description of what's being done as genocide, and that all of the Israeli practices has even gone beyond the colonization to genocide. So we have lots of scenarios that's being done. So the American administration has to start understand that, to put real options and to set on the settlement of two countries and to provide rational solutions and to be neutral, just like the United Nations, just like the International Court of Justice, just like the European countries. So they should stand neutral. So the American administration, if they are really serious in paving the way for peace, and we believe in that, regardless of their statements about the displacement, because this maybe was somehow exaggerated by Donald Trump. But again, I mean that in order to get into the second phase of negotiation that can really set some features of the future of the relation between the Palestinians and the international community. So the international community has to provide the support to cover and to compensate them of the 500 days of genocide. Well, so for this second phase, that we haven't got its negotiation yet, as Benjamin Netanyahu said that it will start within this week. But despite the fact that it hasn't started yet, but again, it is a sort of reach to the agreement. So how can we set again on negotiable table and to include Hamas as being described by our colleague from Amman, because he said that the Arab countries should sit together with Hamas as well, so we can reach a common understanding for the common situation, how the situation will be, how will we deal with the requests and needs of the Palestinians. I think this is very pivotal point, and it's really important, just as the Arab meeting, and I do agree with our colleague that Arab countries have to provide some answers to the needs of Palestinians. I think that Cairo will go to Riyadh to consider some of the requests of the Palestinians. Because Cairo has already set negotiations with the leaders of the movement, and for sure they have tackled lots of questions about the future of the movement. But again, I believe that it's way beyond Hamas movement. Actually, the Palestinian situation is not clear. Even our guest from the United States talks about what happened in the in Gaza and in the Western Bank. It is not just sort of conflict, it is real sort of war that's maybe not really covered by media. So the Israeli troops do lots of attacks over there. That's why we do really need to have a Palestinian Arab meeting that can set specific points that we can agree on. From the Palestinian Party, they have to have new figures, new leaders that can really be able to deal with the international community within these changes and to have sort of compensation to what happened. Well, Hamas is not accepted for the coming period. Yes, I believe so. It's not accepted because, as you know, the Arab countries, they also consider the international community and what are the actual levels of acceptance. I mainly speak about Cairo. Cairo stated that clearly with the leaders of Hamas that it won't be possible to be one of, or to have the same level as they were before the 7th of October. Mohammed Abu Rahman, our colleague, referred to the importance of having a Palestinian-Arab session to have negotiations and discuss the future the Palestinians, and also what would Trump administration needs, what would Israeli needs in order to go forward, etc. And Hamas should not be part of the political agenda for Gaza Strip in the future. How can we figure out that, and how would you think Hamas will accept it? Well, very important question. I think if I would put myself in the shoes of Hamas, and Hamas think or believe that they are the defenders of Palestinians, and they see that they can really understand the situation, and they see that things have been changed, and that the future of Gaza, the displacement, the humanitarian situation, the reconstruction, everything is on just one hand, and their presence on the other hand. This is the equation. So if I would interpret the situation from my end, yes, I might be responsive. I might withdraw myself just for the sake of the Palestinians. But what would the Americans and the Israeli people would provide to the Arab countries or to the Arabs if they would, for instance, like to have the same thing? I mean, if I'm like an Arab figure or an Arab official, I have to provide Hamas something on the other hand, whether for Gaza or whether for the Western Bank. The real issue here is that if we will ask Hamas to get disarmed, and they want to be real deterrents for the Israeli agenda, there's no guarantees. As we see now, the Israeli troops do not want to withdraw from all the territories of Lebanon. That's why this is the situation, So our colleague from Washington, with all my due respect, but what sort of that Trump wants? Trump just wants peace for Israel. Everything's being done in the Western Bank. Trump just turned deaf ear to it. So Trump is only obsessed with the for Israel, and that's it. So this is even being, stated. So that's why it's really clear that the displacement of Palestinians to Naqab is just one of the plans. So we really face very hard stance on all levels. Thank you so much, our former minister from Amman, Dr. Mohammed Abu Rahman. Thank you so much, Mr. Donadio. Thank you so much also to our guest, Mr. Khalid Aukasha. Thank you so much for your insights tonight.